So the first rabbit hole to conquer was the idea of perfection. And its fluffy side effect, procrastination, which usually goes hand in hand. So don't mess with imperfection, I say. There is no perfect moment or anything, really. So this is something that I have to constantly remind myself of every day. It's not some enlightenment that I've somehow managed to achieve and now I'm trying to bestow upon you, the viewer. No. It's something that I humbly admit to you in the hopes that, there's safety in numbers and we can somehow, between that and my admission, encourage both of us to pursue any dreams we might have been waiting on. So don't mess with imperfection. Why state it that way, though, when we normally hear it phrased, don't mess with perfection? When you say don't mess with perfection, that connotes the possibility of perfection, right? And with the possibility of perfection, then we obsess over getting there. When we obsess over getting there, we procrastinate, we get stressed, we experiment less, we learn less, and really we achieve a lot less because perfection is not possible. So if we get to the point even where we find ourselves achieving that perfection, right, by our own biased standards, our perspectives of ourselves, then we end up obsessing over protecting that perfect achievement, which can occupy a lot of our time. That can stunt our growth as artists and prevent us from achieving more because, man, we remember how long it took us to get perfect last time, so doggone it, I'm going to go ahead now and rest on my laurels and enjoy some well-deserved procrastination. Yeah. And now we're back to procrastination. So instead, I say don't mess with imperfection. Imperfection is cool, man. It humanizes, it teaches, it's relatable, and it propels you forward as we laugh at the blooper reels that are going to be plentiful you're going to be amassing, should you choose to release those publicly, of course. So let imperfections happen. Embrace them as allies. Overwhelming carrot. So as a kid, my dad used to distill life down to a creatively bizarre set of analogies, and he had several on the topic of procrastination. And one went like this. Rennie, start somewhere small. Tell me, do you think that the hamster sees the huge carrot in front of him and he gets all overwhelmed? Oh, I can't handle this. He closes his eyes and then he attempts to swallow this whole thing in one bite? No. He sees only the tip, and then he starts nibbling on that first. I had ADHD and many hamsters growing up, so this was an analogy I could easily digest. A pun definitely intended. So why Turbulent Tranquility? Okay, so this is the song that I chose as my first public release under the solo artist named Remnandt. Was the song perfect enough to use towards creating my first album? Nah, but I recognized that both the song and music video were already in a mostly finished form since about 2009, when I created it for a wedding back then, and it was definitely a possibility for a first single. So after killing off my procrastinating thoughts on the first release having to be an album, right? I wanted an entire album. After letting that go and allowing myself to reuse previously existing material, then I found myself trying to perfect said existing material. Aish. So I'm like, oh man, don't mess with imperfection. I kept telling myself again. I'm like, all right, as artists, which, by the way, I believe we all are once we decide to excel, when we choose to excel at something that we're truly passionate about. That's what an artist is. That's anyone who chooses that. But as artists, I think we need to learn when to create. There's a time for doing that. And then we also need to learn when to walk away from our creations and just let them be. Move on. This was definitely one of the bigger takeaways for me during the process of actually releasing this single. It was really difficult. I kept asking myself, like, Rennie, dude, are you messing with imperfection here? Are you trying to perfect Turbulent Tranquility into that download-worthy single? Is that your goal? Sometimes I'd ask that. Sometimes I'd catch myself asking, are you wisely leveraging this existing material so that you can learn the end-to-end process behind creating and distributing a single? Is that Is that what you're doing instead of waiting to pen that perfect song first? So I'll let you be the judge of that. A quick hint is that there's probably a mixture of affirmatives to both of those questions. Last question and thought I'll leave you with is, the series itself. Why am I doing this video series? As I was going through this process, the entire thing was chock full of imperfections, but also chock full of great people who helped me learn a great many things as I went along. So as a first reason, selfish one, I wanted it to be a helpful recipe for myself to smoothly repeat this very detailed and sometimes very tedious process for the next time I wanted to release something. Documentation is always going to be a pain in the rump, but when you do need the documentation later on and you don't have that, that can be a lot more painful. So, secondly, the selfless act behind it is just the fact that I wanted it to be a helpful resource for anybody that can benefit from both the failures and the achievements, the accomplishments that I was able to have through this process. I personally have received so much from a generous internet generation that has always valued sharing ideas through YouTube. So. And the last thing is, obviously to get more views.